They gave us a name. James Earl Ray. A lone gunman. Another madman with a rifle. But what if I told you that story was never meant to hold up? Because the facts, they lead to something much darker. We the public got no explanation for missing witnesses, for the altered evidence, or much else. Fact is, King's family themselves believed the truth was buried. November 21st, 1964. A mysterious package arrives at Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s home. No return address, no sender. Inside, a letter, a tape, and a message so disturbing it nearly broke he and his entire family. What most people don't realize is that this wasn't an anonymous threat. This wasn't the work of an extremist group or a lone racist. It was the freaking FBI. And the man behind this mysterious letter? William C. Sullivan, the deputy director himself. The letter was designed to push King over the edge. It directly attacked his character, calling him an evil, abnormal beast. Harsh words to a Southern preacher back in the 60s. The letter was clear. It delivered but one option. It said, there's only one way out for you. Self-elimination. Now, whether that elimination was from the civil rights movement, his new plans, or his very life, is widely up for debate. The tape sent accused King of sexual betrayal, of disgrace. The warning was that his time was up, and that his legacy was already in flames. But they didn't just send him the tapes. They sent them to his freaking wife. Coretta Scott King received an unmarked package. Inside, a reel-to-reel tape with a painfully clear message. Listen. Hear your husband's betrayal. But Coretta wasn't fooled. When she played the tape, she didn't hear the damning evidence they promised. She called it mumbo jumbo. The FBI didn't need facts. They needed scandal. If they could break King at home, they could break him everywhere else. As sad as it may sound, the letter and the tape were only the beginning. Deputy Director Sullivan didn't succeed, but the director was J. Edgar Hoover, who was in many ways just getting started. J. Edgar Hoover had been watching MLK for years, but watching wasn't enough. King's course needed altered. Hoover happened to have a rather disgusting weapon. Cointelpro, a covert FBI operation specializing in dismantling black leadership by any means necessary. This weapon allowed for wiretaps, blackmail, elimination, the works. This was psychological warfare. Assassination wasn't the first option, but history has a way of repeating itself. On March 8, 1971, a group of activists break into an FBI office in Media, Pennsylvania. They weren't looking for money. They weren't looking for weapons. They were looking for the truth. And what they found changed history. Inside those stolen files, proof of Cointelpro. proof that the FBI wasn't just monitoring MLK. They were actively working to destroy him. They wiretapped his phones. They followed his every move. They tried to get churches to disown him, urged donors to stop funding him. They called universities, telling them he was a fraud. They spread fake news stories to make him look weak. Declassified memos show the government's real fear wasn't just MLK's power. It was his next move, and the fact that it just could be his best one yet. King had a new plan, one that threatened the big guys more than civil rights. A new march on Washington. But this one wouldn't be for minorities. No. This one would be for every poor person in America. King had transitioned his focus onto the betterment of what he called the poor people of all colors. And my God, was this a problem. That's, of course, when the threats against him became something else entirely. That's when things became deadly. April 3rd, 1968. A local storm in Memphis sets the night. It's the night before King's death, and he delivers a speech unlike any other. He clearly laid the path forward for the movement. He spoke about his death multiple times that night. It was almost as if he knew. One day later, one shot, and we the people once again had a government investigation full of holes. Then, 25 years later, a man stepped forward, and he told a much deeper story. Lloyd Jowers wasn't a name you heard in history books. He wasn't a high-ranking official. He wasn't a government agent. He was a bar owner, a man running a small tavern in Memphis. A nobody, until he confessed. On live television in 1993, Jowers claimed he was part of a government-backed conspiracy to assassinate Martin Luther King Jr. This isn't a rumor. It's not speculation. This is a man admitting, with his own words, that he helped coordinate the murder of one of America's greatest civil rights leaders. And if you think that's the most shocking part, you haven't heard what he said next. Jowers claimed that James Earl Ray wasn't the real assassin. According to him, the shot that killed King didn't come from the boarding house across the street. It came from behind his bar. He said a man named Raoul, a shadowy figure, supposedly tied to both organized crime and the intelligence community, was involved. And even more damning, Jowers said that his organized crime buddy, Frank Liberto, paid him $100,000 to make the arrangements. He claims Memphis police were in on it, that the murder of Martin Luther King Jr. wasn't an accident. It was a carefully orchestrated hit. Think about that for a second. A bar owner admitting on ABC primetime television that a U.S. government-backed operation helped silence the loudest voice of the civil rights movement. But instead of an FBI investigation, instead of news stations covering every angle of this confession, the story disappeared. The official narrative, it stayed the same. If Jowers was lying, you'd expect his story to fall apart in court, right? But what if I told you he never recanted? What if I told you Martin Luther King Jr.'s own family believed him? In 1999, Coretta Scott King and her children brought a wrongful death lawsuit against Lloyd Jowers and other unknown co-conspirators. They weren't looking for money. They weren't looking for revenge. They were looking for the truth. And the jury, after hearing the evidence and listening to the testimony, they came to a chilling verdict. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated as part of a conspiracy involving the U.S. government. So if a U.S. court ruled that King was killed by a conspiracy, why was nothing done? Why did the government let the case die? And most importantly, why are some of the files still locked away?